Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Gizmo Joe. Today we're going to be taking a hands-on look at the Sony Xperia XA. You can pick up the Sony Xperia XA for about 150 Australian dollars from a variety of different retailers. I'll leave a couple links down in the description below in case you're interested in picking one up. Under the hood, the XA has a Helio P10 octa-core processor and 2 gigabytes of RAM. But let's face it, this doesn't really mean much to anyone, really, except for real tech heads. So we're just going to be talking about the pros and cons of everyday usage in this video. Okay, so first things first, the Sony Xperia XA has a really nice build quality to it. It is a metal frame all around the sides, and then you have a plastic backing. But the design of the phone is really cool. Some people might take offense to the large sort of earpiece and the chin down at the bottom, but the edge-to-edge screen looks really nice. And you got a 5-inch panel in a body that is really easy to hold in the hand. It feels really nice, and it actually feels premium because, again, you have that metal frame. One of the cool, interesting sort of design features of this is the button placement. So here is your power button, and then you have your volume rocker, but then you have this button over here, which you can probably see a little bit better if I hold the phone this way. This is actually a shutter button. So if I press that, actually I think you have to hold it down, you'll notice that it launches the camera. And then obviously pressing it again snaps a photo. And I actually really like this feature. I mean, you know, you get used to pressing the shutter button here on the screen, but it's just really nice to have an actual physical button, and it gives that satisfying sort of click. So I do really like that. One of the things that I do not like is the fact that it is 2018 and this phone does not have a fingerprint scanner. I think that that's a real letdown. You'll notice every time I fire this guy up, I'm going to have to do my pattern or my PIN code or whatever in order to get into the phone. That's a pain. It's just, there's really no reason why there isn't a fingerprint scanner down here or even somewhere on the back. So that's a bit of a letdown there. As far as the performance of the phone, again, it's a P10, which is, you know, definitely a few years old now. Got 2 gigabytes of RAM, but I found in everyday usage, the UI was pretty smooth. Apps had no problem in terms of being launched and all that sort of stuff. And just overall, I felt like it was a pretty fluid experience. So as I mentioned before, the design and build quality of the phone is really nice. I think it looks really cool. It feels really nice in the hand. And that's pretty much where the positives of this phone begin and sort of end. Everything else is sort of a con, and let's get into them because there's quite a few. So first and foremost, a lot of people wonder about the camera. Well, the camera is a 13 megapixel shooter. Now, I found that in good lighting conditions, it could actually take reasonably detailed photos. In anything less than ideal lighting situations, you're talking about a lot of noise, a lot of blur, a lot of just crummy sort of photos that don't have a lot of detail. I mean, it's actually pretty shocking how poorly it performs in low light. So that is a big negative. Now, one of the other things I have a problem with is the amount of bloat that this phone comes with. I mean, you can see here, it's got the PlayStation app. It's got, I think, pre-bundled with the Amazon app. It's got all these different apps. I mean, now granted, there's only 16 gigabytes of storage in here. You got AVG protection, you got Amazon, you got all this junk. And I wouldn't really have a huge issue with it because, again, it's only a 16 gigabyte storage in the phone, but you can expand that with a micro SD card. So again, not a huge problem. But the biggest issue is that you can't uninstall these apps unless you root the phone, of course, but you can't uninstall them, so they're just stuck in there. And they give you these notifications all the time. So now, granted, you can go into your settings and prevent it from, you know, sending push notifications and all that sort of stuff to your phone. But it's just a complete pain. You get all of these annoying notifications about apps that you don't even use. Like, you know, I don't even have a PlayStation, so what do I need that PlayStation app for? But anyway, all that stuff comes pre-installed. So that is a big downer for me. It's just a pain to have to go in there and manually shut off all the notifications, and I just don't think you should really have to do it. But other than that, the Sony skin is a pretty stock Android experience, so I mean it's not that bad. You can get different themes and obviously, you know, apply them, but again, it's just pretty stock. Now, I watch a lot of YouTube videos on my phone all the time, keep up with the American news cycle because it's so mental over there at the minute, but I always use YouTube. And the loudspeaker on this particular phone, which is down here, is terrible. It is not very loud, it's not very clear, it's just the volume is so poor that if you are not sitting right in front of this phone, then you're gonna have a hard time hearing it. So I like to, put my phone up on a stand and then wander around, do a bit of cooking, whatever, while I have YouTube on. But this one, it's just impossible. You have anything else happening, any sort of other noise going on, and you're just not going to be able to hear what's on this phone. So again, the loudspeaker on that is pretty shockingly bad. Now, I had a look when I first bought this phone of some reviews that were online, and almost everyone complained about the battery life. Now, the battery life in this particular phone is only 2300 milliamp hours, which is fairly small. But again, you have to remember that it is a fairly thin, fairly small phone. So to jam a battery in there, you're not going to get a 4000 milliamp hour battery in a body this size. I found that the battery life wasn't as bad as everyone made it out to be. Now, if you're a heavy user of your phone, what I mean by that is if you're constantly on it, the brightness you have up all the time, you're always doing stuff on your phone constantly all day long, then yeah, you're going to need to carry around a charger or a portable charger or whatever with you, because this isn't going to last the day. But I found that as far as like my usage, again, watching some YouTube videos, pulling it out every once in a while to make a phone call or text message, check my email, it lasted pretty much all day. I mean, granted, getting into the evening, you were starting to get pretty low, but I found that the battery itself wasn't terrible. Like I said, a lot of reviewers say it's really bad, but I didn't think so. So I said that I liked this edge-to-edge screen. It looks really cool. I mean, obviously there's a tiny bit of a bezel there, but I do like the design of it. I think it looks really cool. The problem is it's only a 720 panel, so it's a 5-inch screen, but it's 720. I mean, now granted, most people's eyes probably aren't going to be able to notice the difference between 720 and 1080, but I just think that for a device that is, $150, you should really have a 1080 panel at this stage. Again, most people are going to feel like that's not a huge deal breaker. And I mean, don't get me wrong, the panel's okay, but I just think that it should have a 1080 panel in there. I just don't see the reason why it isn't in there. Speaking of the screen, one of the more disappointing things is the fact that this is as bright as it goes. So it's not all that bright. If I pull this down, you'll notice how dim it gets. And I find that to be really awkward, because some of my other phones, you can have it down at 25% brightness and it's quite vibrant still. This is incredibly dim. I found that during usage, especially outside, you pretty much had to jack the screen brightness all the way up. And that probably contributes to a lot of the battery complaints with this phone, because again, the screen is it obviously chews up the majority of your battery life. And if you constantly have to have it at such a high brightness, it's going to be depleted sooner rather than later. One more positive thing about this guy is the fact that it has NFC. It's probably one of the cheapest phones I've seen with NFC. That's that near field communication, so you can just kind of like tap and go with other NFC compatible products, so that's pretty cool to see. But again, you're missing a lot of other things that are pretty stock standard for most phones nowadays, like a fingerprint scanner and all that sort of stuff. So the Sony Xperia XA, what is my final impression? Well, I love the design, but it is a classic case of style over substance. You're just not getting all that much in the package here. You get a cool looking phone, but the battery life isn't great. The camera is terrible in low light. And you don't have standard things like a fingerprint scanner. This, to me, is, especially in 2018, sort of stuff that you would expect to have, even on a phone that's $100. Again, this guy you can get for about $150. It's a well-made phone, and it looks cool. So if those are the two things that you're most concerned with, then by all means, pick it up, give it a try. It's not that much of an investment. But for me, I just couldn't use it as my daily driver, just because, again, the screen is pretty poor, no fingerprint scanner, the camera's not great, and the battery life is so-so. Anyway, that's going to do it for this week's video. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment, like, and subscribe. It would really help me out. And I'm trying a new format, and I'm trying to be a little more hands-on as opposed to just purely spec-driven when I do these reviews. Let me know what you think about this new format, and if you'd like me to change or whatever, give me some suggestions. Anyway, like I said, that's going to do it. Check back next week for a brand new video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you all next week. This is Gizmo Joe signing off.